Ready.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. Can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
I'm Svetlana, and I've been working with Jinan probably for the last 3-4 years. I'm just going to give a little introduction and kind of the context of this presentation. I'm going to be sharing mainly what the journey of my son learning to read and write on his own. But to set the content is, or the context is that, can everyone please mute themselves? And I think I believe we'll have time for questions and answers at the end.
Yeah, no problem.
But actually, if anybody, if any questions arise during the presentation, please go ahead and I think ask. So we have 3 languages in our family. So I speak Russian is the primary language that I speak with my son. His dad speaks Spanish, and then we've been alternating between US and Mexico. So the environment language is either English or Spanish. It's important to mention because in some of my observations, this will come up. And right now, my son is 7.5. So the way that I started my journey, unlearning journey, is I think through the Continuum Concept group, I met Jinan and I took a couple of workshops. I think it was being in beauty and about toys and a couple of other online workshops. And along with that, I've started doing some other things which are more focusing on myself and questioning everything. So it's questioning, why is this happening? Or why? And then I've also started noticing that my son also asks questions. And I started making pause between giving him an answer giving him a short answer versus started going into this whole teaching process. And the way that for me this journey really has been is through observing and documenting. So the more I've observed, the more I documented, the more this knowing or seeing just happened. It's really hard to explain because it's not the knowledge, oh, I know, I can explain how this happened. It just happens internally. The more that I observed both my son and myself. Part of this was also experimenting, not being afraid to experiment with myself with different ways. For example, I started removing toys at some point a while back. And obviously, not all at once. But then I noticed, okay, in the evening, when he's asleep, I would go and pick up like a couple of things. And then like 99% of the time, I realized he wouldn't ask for anything. So again, I would do it and observe what would happen. And from there, kind of this understanding happened. And as I mentioned, I think yesterday, a big part of my journey was looking and exploring my own fears, shadows, habits, and doubts. And yeah, this has been huge for me, shifting focus into myself and going into, okay, what is my fear? what am I afraid that, my son won't have this or this? Am I afraid of the opinion of other people? Am I afraid that he won't fit into the system? It's been, I found it really important to explore those, and everybody gonna have, I think, their own answers. So the way it started for my son is he started with paying attention and observing labels on bottles that were on the table while we would eat. So we used to do a lot of different like vitamins, or I remember we would drink coconut water from in the US from the container, from the bottle, or even, just having bottle of coconut oil. He would take it. So whatever he would see in the table during the time that we eat, he would take it and he would ask or follow, and he would do it again and again and again. And he would point or ask me to read labels, street signs, street names, everything that he would see on a daily basis. So a couple of years ago, I believe it was 2023, maybe, or 22, we went to Mexico, well, first to Costa Rica and then to Mexico. And over there, we didn't have a car, so we would walk. And we would walk everywhere, and he started just noticing the signs on the stores and street signs, like papers, anything that was around us. And then he would start also at the same time started copying, or a little bit later, he started copying and writing all those things down. So using anything to write on. So he would take, boxes or envelopes or anything and copy and write. And he would make, so at that time we had we had 3 languages going on. And so he made letters out of the paper and alphabets, or just even letters in 3 languages, and separated them and had like this bags of letters in all over. And he numbered them. He kind of just did all kind of things with them. When he started reading, it was out loud, and it's still out loud. And I would also read when I would read. I don't do it often. Sometimes, when I read what I read, he would always ask me to read it out loud. And what I've noticed that he learned more or less simultaneously in English and Spanish. So it was pretty much back and back. And Russian remains the language he and I communicate in, but because there is no really Russian in our daily life around us, so he doesn't write or read on it much. He recognizes it, he speaks, sometimes he can do a little bit, but because again, the environment, the languages that are in our environment are English and Spanish, that's the languages that he uses. So when he started writing, it would be his name, my name, and he would just write in different variations and different. So his name is Mark, M-A-R-C, and he would write it in different ways. Mark with K at the end. He would just go and write the sequences. That's at the beginning, sequences of letters again and again and again. This is numbers, and I couldn't find, but photo with what he did with letters, but he would do the same thing. Right? He would just write them again and again. Then again, as he makes everything, a lot of things that he sees around, so he made a laptop. He also, since we go to stores a lot or buy things at the stores, food, he got interested in money, and he copied. He would make his own money. He started collecting receipts and recreating them, creating his own. He would also write in the shower and on the mirror, in the steamed bathroom, like tracing his fingers. Then he created this meal schedule after a friend and I, we stayed in the same house with another family, and we had this meal schedule for 1 week, and the following week he created his own one based on what we did. And I asked him why he wrote both an S as in C for words that starts with C, and he said that in his language there is no C for sound K, only letter K for sound K and letter S for sound S. So he says that the way words sound are based on sounds, and there is no letter C in Q, only K. He would compare shapes of things outside of him to letters. Right? Again, kind of from anything and everything that's outside any materials, he would create the shapes of the letters. Yeah, that's from like the masa, from which in Mexico they make tortillas. Yeah, he would use it to create different letters. And again, he would say, recently he said, Papa writes you as you, and you write you as Y-O-U. And so I don't tell him anything, right? None of this is me telling him. And that's what I started noticing, that these questions or the observations, they come from him. then he started exploring meaning of words that either sound the same and have different meaning, or different words that have same meaning. And the way that I know is because he asks me. So the questions or the observations come from him. So the other day I said something about female and male, and he said, oh, male sounds just like male, which is the word for M-A-I-L. You know, it's very, these things are very like slight, right? But what they tell me is that he has his own process that he is going through, the cognition, that he is observing things and that connections are happening for him, that they happen on his own, in his own way. So from there he started, then he got, so we've been traveling for the past, you know, we've been splitting time between different countries and traveling. So he got interested in maps and public transportation, since this is what we use. He would study or read the map and then reproduce it at home on paper. You know, this first picture is something that when we would walk, he would stop, you know, in the corner of the street, and he's like, stop, I want to make, like, I want to write something or like make a note from those streets. And so he would notice the names of the street, the cross streets, and would create maps at home. And what I've noticed then, since he learned to read, his attention goes first and foremost to the written word, signs, or anything around him. So when we go, for example, if there is a, you know, like a sign, if we go to the park, if there is a sign, he would go to the sign first. You know, if there is a tree and there is a name of the tree next to it, he would go to that name first now. He started drawing maps of the places that we were in. This is the map of the first floor of the house. This is stairs, and he uses pencil mostly, or you know, pen, but not really much color. So this is in Spanish, mapa de la casa. That's map of the house. That's the initial, and so he would do this, and then from there he would add on. For example, at this point we were living in a gated community, so there were houses around. So he made this one, and then on a different paper he made a street, and he drew the houses where our friends were, and showed me, okay, this person lives, you know, here, this person lives here, and this is how we get to the park. We would use public transport to move, and here he wrote, I think it's a mix of English and Spanish. He wrote the route of this one. It's a mini public bus that we use. So he would he wrote different places that he would pass. You know, this place, kind of like his route. this is the train system in the city where we live in Oregon, in the US. And yeah, at some point he asked, you know, he picked up maps and he would just ask to go to the train stations, watch trains, and we would do the city, go into the city and ride the train. And he started building, he would study the map, and then he started building this tracks. And I know I would notice that they are very much the shapes of the what he would build matches the map. So these connections that he would put, they would be even at the same angle that the tracks. So when he would tell me when the tracks, like between this and this station, when they turn, that's how his tracks turn on the floor. And then he would use these blocks, this little blocks, to put stations around the hallway. So creating this line which has terminals and stations. The next step would be he added different lines and directions to his tracks. So first it was one, then he red and line, those are the colors of the lines. And then he added, marked and identified all train stations by their names, added the transit centers where they are, painted marked blocks for the lines. And then he said that the directions of the blocks that have station names on them are placed facing opposite directions, mimicking how it is seen at the train station. Last year, there was an extension of the line, and he added, when it happened, he added stations to his line. He rebuilt it to add the new stations for the extension. Then he added bus numbers to the transit center station on his system. So that happened after we would go to the transit center a couple of times, and he just wanted like walk around, or we would take a bus. And he matched the bus numbers with the ones that depart from that transit center. This is one of the maps, and yeah, that he would explore and with the schedules. And he has multiple, he has the general maps, and then he asked for maps of each of the buses, the routes and schedules of different buses separately. So then one day he wanted to pick up more maps, and it was in the center of the city. So when I told him, okay, we need to go to this place, he quickly came up with a plan of how we would go there. He said we would need to walk to this bus station, to this bus stop closest to our home, take this bus to this transit center, and then take the train. So I followed, we did that. And when we got to the cross streets, I thought we would need to go to the left. And he said, no, Mom, this bus goes in the opposite direction. We need to go to the right and take the bus from this stop. And we only rode this bus a few years ago when he was little. I asked him how if he remembers. He said no. And he said that it's from the maps that he made the connection or understood. And when we got on the bus, he knew exactly the street by street where the bus was going, his route, which streets he would go past. This is one of the routes. I asked him, okay, how do we get from our home to this place, which is close to his dad's job? And so he created this, and the dots are the walk. So we have to walk first to this and then the bus. Again, a map of another bus that he created or recreated. Once he asked to go to this farmer's market in the closest town, in the town nearby. Once we got there, he asked to walk along one street, and he was looking for a particular cross street. He told me that this is where a bus that goes from our town to this one makes a loop and goes back. So we were walking and he was looking for a particular place. I followed him around a few blocks, and then he showed me a bus stop where the bus turns around. A bus came right at that time, and he told me, see, this bus is going to stop here and then turn and go back along the street. So we observed how it all happened. And again, I asked him how he knows this, and he said from the bus maps, from the map of the bus route that he has from this one. So all of this, why am I sharing all of this? Because this is what I see in this is the connection between learning, or between, in this case, map, which is a tool, two-dimensional tool in the real world, right? So, one way is just to use, kind of get, when we use, what are we using them for? Why are we using them? And it's been beautiful to observe how he uses these tools to make connections, or to understand, to bring it into the environment, the context of the real world. We traveled by public bus recently, and he noted that he was observing how people requested for stops. And he noted that one needs to pull this handle to request a stop. And then when we got home, he put this blue rope on his scooter and said that the scooter is the bus, and then people need to pull this one to request a stop. Then there were cases when we would drive on the highway, and there was a lot of traffic, and then he told me, oh, we can take this exit. And then he would tell me, okay, if you go here, and take this turn, and then we would get back home. And I was using the Google Maps at that time, and the Google Maps were showing a different route. So I followed what my son was saying, and we got successfully, made a detour. But, I wouldn't know how to do this. And then again, I asked him how he knew And he said that this particular bus uses this route. So again, it's the maps of the buses that he would study or use. He made a connection that we could use, that we were in this point, and then we could use this route to go back home, and we followed that route. Yeah, we would do a few city trips, and so each time we would go to the train station, he would check. Okay, he would go and check the schedules, for example, of the train station against his printed schedule that he has. So he would do a lot of this checking. So it's almost like he would take nothing for granted, right? Whatever happens, he's like, okay, let me check, let me see if that's true. And then he would lead me into making connections. Okay, we would need to connect with this line at this train station. And all of this, I think all of this happened as he not mixed, but from his understanding of direction, environment, map, observing. So recently he said he put this together, the domino pieces, and he said there's a buses parked at the bus terminal. Each domino tile is a bus with the capacity of a respective number of dots. So for example, the tile that has 3 dots is a bus that fits 3 people. And the ones with 0 are buses for disabled people with wheelchairs. And I noticed that on the buses, when we would on the buses, yeah, he would observe those spaces that in the buses they keep for the people with wheelchairs. And a few times when we were on the bus, there were people in wheelchairs coming in and out. And so this happened after those observations. And then recently he told me that this is so airports is one other thing that we use a lot as we travel. And so he created this airport where he said that this is the runway that he created from this particular bills, 20s and 50s landing runway. And then he explained me how the planes land, wait for control tower instructions, and then they proceed to the gates. And then here he put this created the gates, where he said that hundreds on one side are gates through which people go directly from the airplane inside the terminal. So recently we flew on the plane where you go outside of the terminal and you go up the plane. So it doesn't connect directly to the terminal. And so here he created these 2 different ways how people can go into the planes. And then he said some are roads for airport buses, baggage and food transportation, and other airport equipment. And coins, he said, are various airport transport that operate in the airport. We were visiting friends in another state, and while we were there, he asked to print a map of their public bus from the public transit system. And then we printed it, and then he looked at it, and he would tell us when we would drive, he would tell us which bus goes on what street, and then showed me where there is a bus stop that goes directly to the airport. And he would point to the bus stations as we were, driving, and he would say, you see, this is the bus station that goes to this place or that place. So that's pretty much all for me. And any questions or observations that anybody has, I would love to hear from you all. And Jinan and Ranjana, if you have anything to add, please do.
Is he still doing it?
Is he still doing it?
Mm.
Yes. I mean, what I shared at the end, the airport from the money, that's from a few days ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, when he actually started building curiosity on reading and writing things?
It depends what you define as starting, because I remember when he was probably around 3, we would go to the playgrounds and he would just go around and, point or be interested in the signs. So I think it was early on, 3, 4, when he started looking at things, what I around, pretty much what was in his environment. And then actually, like the first images that I showed, I think it was around 5.
Okay. And I'm just trying to understand how this even process went through. Like usually how we do is we are forced to kind of learn, right? Like here, I just wanted to understand that was that process you intentionally did it, or is it that just happened?
There was nothing intentional here. The only intentional in this process was that my mother at some point, even though I asked her not to, she would do here and there, kind of showed him some books with alphabets, so here and there she would teach him, but it was very random. And from my point, there was no intention. And actually at that point I was more into the Waldorf philosophy, which say that you intentionally delay academics until 7 or 8. So at that point my intention was, okay, I'm not going to show him anything until later. And then when I saw that he himself started doing this right when he was 5, it was like, okay, well, there is nothing I can do or I need to do.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you read or write in front of him. Is that so?
Well, I read. Yes, reading happens, but not much. Yeah, I stopped doing a lot of reading. I stopped doing reading intentional once I think I started following or starting observations. So yeah, he's seeing, obviously he sees people read, he sees people write, right?
Okay.
But I wouldn't do this for him. So there is a difference doing things for him, for a child, right? Sitting and writing and saying, okay, I'm going to do ABC with you. There's a difference between that and, okay, I'm going to sit and write my own journal because I do this, because this is what I do, right? Or I'm going to read a book because this is what I do. Or, in my case, it's been a lot of, because we travel and there's a lot of logistics and it's me and my son. So I use phone a lot, WhatsApp mainly for communication.
Okay.
Right. So he's been seeing this.
Okay. Thank you. I think I got it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi, I just have a thought that I wanted to share. In chatting with other families, I'm starting to see a little bit of a trend that the boys tend to go down this like exploration with the maps. I'm wondering if you've seen this kind of exploration from girls, because I've yet to see it. I'm sure it exists, but I'm wondering, in your travels with other families, do you see that boys tend to gravitate to this map work, or do you see it from both?
I think the maps is very contextual. I feel it happened for us because of travels, right? Probably. I do see, I've seen some other kids that are interested in maps. And, when they would stop, by the entrance of the park, right, and look at the map. The family that I'm with right now, they have a 5-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. And so the boy is not interested right now much in this because he's much more physical. He is also on this journey of, well, not on this journey, but obviously his dad does more manual work, and so he is observing and doing that. The girl who is 7, she is more into reading, and she learned to read herself similarly. But I think just different, probably different tools because the environment is different. But yeah, with her, I don't see, she's not interested in really maps. She's interested in what other girls are interested in, which is more reading about different contexts. I don't know if that answers your question, Mila.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, it does. Like I said, I was just seeing if you've observed this interest across both parties, or because now in my experience, it's been mostly with males. So that's now I'm inquiring. And yes, thank you for sharing this journey of your son like learning to read. I think sometimes when Jinan speaks about, the dangers of cognition, I think sometimes we get a little spooked and scared that, and we're like, oh, like we're not going to read. And it's like, no, we're not saying that like you can't read or that no one should read. It's just, you don't have to impose it on the children, and you don't have to create these stressful situations, for fear that they won't get it in the future, So thank you for sharing your natural story and showing us that, we don't have to be scared that our children won't learn how to read just because we don't teach them. I really appreciate this. Thank you, guys.
Yes, yeah, and thank you, Mila, for bringing this up. Yeah, I think I also had first when he started, his interest started. I was scared because for me, again, see, this is the the ideas conditioning. I thought, oh, that's too early, and I thought, oh, he's gonna damage himself, right? The cognition, and so then that's the point where, for me, I had to really stop and realize, okay, where is my fear? And where is the reality? And at the same time, what I've been noticing about books is it's the content. There is so much underlying content in books that are deemed child appropriate, or that are deemed for child or children or whatever. Because anything that a child gets, right, any ideas. So yes, he started reading, so now he wants books, but there's ideas from the books. Who put these ideas there? right? Somebody put these ideas there. So recently he wanted this encyclopedia about, just different things. It talks about trains and how how things work. And there was also a section about the body, how the body works and get born. And so, it said, okay, well, when the baby needs to be born, a mother goes to the hospital and this happens, right? And like before it wouldn't do anything, but now I'm like, what? Well, this is the message that we get from the books, right? And obviously different books show different messages, but now I'm realizing how the content is critical, right? Because this is what they're gonna get from the book, and it's not like they can say, oh, it happens this way or this way. Yes, Anjali?
Yeah. Hi, Swarnala, and thank you so much for sharing your beautiful documentation about your son learning through reading and then the maps. It was really beautiful to watch all that you shared, and how I also because I've been thinking a lot about these things, and reading about how children start learning on their own. And so this was a really beautiful thing for me to witness today. And I could see that, he had so much curiosity, which you just supported through your presence, and through, just maybe giving him what he needs when he asks for it. And thereby it feels like he has this beautiful curiosity and love for the world, and he's able to embrace this real world, and he sometimes I think because text and books put a filter between you and the world, it puts a barrier between you and the world, but Mark seems to be rightfully taking his place in the world and belonging there. And I think one of the most beautiful points was how he solved a real world problem because of his own journey of curiosity, and helped you out of that traffic. And it's just fascinating. It just shows the power of the mind as well. How much he had actually learned through just exploring and playing, but he had actually learned so much as well. And it's probably very empowering for his mind as well in many ways, this self-exploration. So this was what I think I took away. A lot more, but these are things which stand out a lot, and I just wanted to say thank you as well.
No, thank you. Thank you, Anjali. Yes, and yeah, exactly. I think those moments when exactly he, we say like resolve, right? Things, or I mean, this is real life. This is the skills, because when we ask ourselves, what do we want our children? What kind of things we want them in life, right? And for me, it's the skills to be able to just navigate this world, right? Navigate the world, resilience, values, all those things, right? And I understand how things function. And you know what exactly you said, it's this, I think it's this innate playfulness and curiosity and the desire to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the desire to really figure how things work. And like to Mila's point, I don't know, obviously girls also, I only have a boy, but I think girls also have this, but I see this more in boys, this just really, this determination and desire to figure out how this works, oh, this is like, I don't know, he does this with appliances also, like the water, the washing machine, or where the water is coming from, or where does it go. He really wants to figure it out, And if I say, okay, the water goes down there, he would go down and like, he would want to see not just because I told him the water goes down the drain. Like, Satya?
Yes, thank you for sharing. Yes, it was very lovely to see all that. I just wanted to, I was just curious, like, when he started reading, because I also have a 5-year-old now, and I've been observing for around a year. So, did you start with phonetics with him, or was it just like, letters and things like that? Like,
I didn't start anything. Like
okay.
I didn't, I didn't start anything. My mother did some things, but I think it was like basic phonetics. I don't even know exactly, but
Mm,
and also I wouldn't be caught up on the age, right? Just the
mm,
fact that my son started around 5 doesn't mean anything, because
mm,
there are other people in the groups that I know whose children go through the process on their own when they're like 8, 9, 10,
right.
I think the age I've seen, the age really, I don't think it matters,
Mm,
right?
right.
It's some just like anything else, right? You observe what's in your environment. My this other family we're with right now, their son who is 5, right?
Mm,
He picked up, he knows how to use like saw to cut or wood, like the tools to do those things, because they're building the house, right? They're building the house, the kids are around right now, the process of building the house. So
mm,
this is what they're gonna learn, right?
mm,
I wanted, in the beginning, I wanted, it was all about nature. I wanted, my son, oh, we're gonna plant things and do the seeds and everything. And then at some point, and it was a painful process, I realized he cannot learn this because this is not in his environment, right?
mm,
And at some point I would force those things, but then I realized I don't want to do this alone with him. I'm not enjoying this. Why do
mm,
I want to put this on myself? Like when we were, in Costa Rica, yeah, I was like, alone. I remember myself in the garden trying to do this so that
mm,
my son would learn this. And then I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I don't want to do this.
mm,
So this is the energy difference, right? There's a big energy, and the children feel that. They really feel when you do something on purpose, when you have an agenda, or when people do things because they need, like you cook because you want to make a meal, right? Or
mm.
you do like processes because this is what happens.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Uh, Sangai, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your names correctly.
Yeah, actually, Satya is my husband, and we'll be referring to the same child.
Okay.
And please excuse me if that same child will come running, because my mom is trying to put her to sleep, but she's wanting me only. Actually, thank you very much. Today, you've, I think, put both our minds at ease quite a bit, because we were discussing this very thing just like an hour ago. And because I was telling Satya that, like, because I was like, I did a Montessori course to understand our child better or whatever, I think, not knowing that I could have done other things also. But anyway, so I took up a 3 to 6 year Montessori course. And from there, like, I learned a whole new thing. It's not like I didn't. And also because of which now she's about to turn 5 this year. So she kind of really does ask me, what is this? What is this? Anything she does, there's with writing English thing. And then or Devanagari, like Hindi, Nepali, she'll ask me like what it is and all that. And I do have the tendency to kind of say it to her in that phonetics way and all that. So it's kind of like I am like your mother wrapped in myself only type of thing, like where I'm like trying not to kind of teach a teacher, but then that phonetic thing or whatever, it just comes in. So yeah, and then because that's one of the things that we are constantly trying to do from going towards unschooling and all. And I always keep asking Satya, ki, like, okay, but how is she gonna like learn to read? I mean, she just asks and she just writes letters, and she writes, I think 2 as a S and a 5 as a 2 or something like that. She does and all that. She's still like she's starting to kind of try writing more and more. So you kind of helped us quite a bit in that journey. And I mean, like, it does answer also, because I told Satik, like, should I not tell her about the phonetics when she asks and all that? But I think thanks to your talk and your sharing, there's a lot of clarity. I think it would be safe to say, like, the less you kind of do it better. I don't know. I'm still getting unschooled about unschooling. I mean, like, about schooling and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I for me, I think the less is more. And also that I believe something is that it's important to realize is that in the last, I don't know how many years, 10, 20 years, there are these tendencies around the world, right? Compression. So when we remember ourselves, I mean, I think all of us went to the system education, but even then, at what age did we learn to read and write? Like, I grew up in Russia, right? In Russia, I think they didn't, at that time, we didn't start until 7 or 8, right? Right now, I'm in Mexico right now, and I'm living right now in the house with teachers, and they're telling me that right now, it's like in kindergarten, by 5, children are expected to read, like to know stuff, right? So just stepping back and seeing the big picture, right? So this year's, I don't know how many years, but the history of compression and like doing everything earlier, this measurements, right? And requiring children to do everything earlier and earlier, right? In the US, I think in the preschools now, like, which is 3, 4 years old, they want children to like start doing things, literacy. So also just realizing it's not good or bad. It's just realizing that there is a trend in the world about, okay, this requirement. Who puts this requirement? Why is this requirement? Why do children need to like read and write at 3, 4, 5, 6?
Yeah. There was this other thing actually, that we were discussing once again, like, because she saw in our colony that we stay in, she saw like other children like get doing like football classes and all that. And that's another thing that we had a kind of a discussion about, Satya and I, because she wants to do the football class because she saw someone in karate class and one of her karate friends was in the football class. And then about how is that a good thing or a bad thing kind of thing because of the competition and all that. And for a longest time, the school that we did put to her, which was a Montessori school only, they kind of did say that, she needs to learn and write and all that. Otherwise, when she sees other children who are, not, who have already like started writing and reading and all that, then she'll feel bad and all that. That was one of the reasons they gave. And then they were saying about how, with other peers and all. So now, like, she doesn't go to the school anymore, but we have now, she has been in situations where people are asking her, oh, you don't go to school. And then her cousins or like friends, our friends' children ask her, oh, you don't know how to read this, or you don't know your ABCs properly, or whatever, in the right order and all that. So yeah, in that times, we kind of do falter. She falters, and then we also haven't quite got to the, I think, that period. Right now, we're in the transitional period, because of which we also, I guess, need to kind of tell her and talk to her about these things more. But yeah, that was one of the things that I would also worry about. I mean, when she was in school, to the teacher, I did tell her, look, I don't care about where the other children are at what level they are at and all that. I just wanted to come to school, and then have fun and all that, and that's it. But then, yeah, that was one of the things they would say. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought,
And I think,
yeah, I
and
thought it
people
wouldn't
also,
affect me so much. Yeah.
Mhm.
But when the relatives and friends' children ask her and all that type of thing, and she just looks at me like, because most of the time she's with me only, and then like, I also don't know at the moment. Sometimes I'm stumped, like, what should I say, type of thing. And at the same time, I'm not always in the mood to give a lecture to people about like unschooling and this and oh, she's learning this way, that way, and all that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's been really important for me, this journey of, okay, yeah, this is my path. This is the path that we chose. And yet people ask all the time, oh, your child is not in
yeah,
school. And yeah, and that's
exactly.
okay. And that's okay. And I think for me, it's just this internal determination or decision. Okay, this is what I feel is right. This is what is right for me, for my family. This is what, and exactly, your child is looking for you, right? At you. When this question comes, they look at you because they want to see
Yeah,
what is your reaction. Like, because they're gonna
exactly.
feel the energy and yeah, okay, my mom is okay with this. Yeah, I don't go to school, fine. I'm not worried because I don't go to school. But then if my mom is like, oh my gosh, or, what's gonna happen, what people gonna think about me.
Yeah, just today we kind of decided that we're just gonna kind of tell her, that we are going to kind of just tell her ki, like we are gonna whatever you need to learn, you need to just tell people you're learning at home with mom and dad or whatever, or you're learning from wherever. And at one point I did kind of tell Satya also, ki, like, how about we just tell people we are like homeschooling her, and then like, because like you said, people keep asking, and like you're not always in the mood to like keep explaining to people also. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and then I would also, what helps me is to surround myself, and this is the hard thing, right? To find other families who are on the same journey, right? To just really be intentional about this. I think there are more and more groups now. There are more people are creating groups, we have like weekly revillaging calls about this. So it's intentional. I think these days you just have to be more intentional about a lot of these things because we don't have a village, right? Because everything is so fragmented. So on the parts of adults, I feel a lot of this, at least for me, it's conscious and intentional.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, anyways, your talk has done a lot of good for me, for us and all. Thank you so much, and sorry for taking up so much of your time. Thank you.
First,
Actually, the courage comes when you clearly understand that there is a system given by life to learn. The problem is that modern educated people have absolutely no idea about what is learning. This is the problem. And our assumption is that unless somebody teaches, we won't learn. And the second thing is that it is from the books that we have to learn. See, these are two confusions that modern people have. And actually, through our work, what we are trying to prove is that children are capable of learning, and that is enabled by life. It is not an egoistic act like breathing and digestion and everything else in our biology. Cognition is also a biological process. And just that modern people have not really understood that at all. In fact, I think when Anjana, shows her presentation, you will very clearly see, because her presentation is on much younger children, and how language is being learned through a proper system. So, see, the moment we are able to understand that there is a system given by life to understand anything for that matter, then we will be fine. Not only that, we will also be, least interfering, because the more you interfere, the more destruction you are doing. that also becomes very clear, Our assumption is that by doing all kinds of things, we are doing good for children. Actually, it is the reverse. So if you actually understand the principle of cognition, then we will begin to respect autonomy. We will stop actually interfering. We will start teaching. All that things we will stop. So actually, that is the effort that all of us are trying to put in. That with various friends that are coming together, what we are trying to do is to systematically document. And so I'm sure Sanjay, you know about this group, no? So yeah.
Yes, I do.
And also, it's really also wonderful to observe and notice how children, what they do together, right? Because they're also, in a sense, I don't want to use the word teach, but when they are together, right? They encourage each other and the same skills develop. But for that, all they need, they just need time, right? And a time, like right now when the kids, they spend pretty much all days together, like with no structure, right? And beautiful things happen. They wanted to learn, this boy was interested in roller skates, right? And then and my son also, they they were observing, I think, others, right? And they just they put on their roller skates and they started doing the rounds. Nobody taught them, nobody ever, they didn't take classes, and then they do it, they do it, but they just did it because I think they wanted to do it, and because they observe, right? They observe it's happening around them. I have a friend whose daughter goes to school, and so she tells me that her daughter, she calls it, has trouble with reading. She doesn't like reading. So that's concern. Her concern is she doesn't like reading because I think in her school, right, they teach the reading, and they teach in a certain way. And I hear this from some other families whose kids are in school and that they don't want to read. It's not pleasant. It's not, yeah.
Anyone else?
Hi, I just had one more inquiry. In the beginning, you said about toys and how over time you got rid of them and your son no longer asked for them. Would you say that it was similar with the books, like as far as content? Like, did you find that he still asked for like children's books, or was he satisfied with, a general book?
Yeah, he doesn't ask for children's books. I mean, if we're in the library or in somebody's house where there are children's books, yeah, they tracked him. So they tracked him, I think, because of the colors and the way the children's books are written. I think it's mostly like colors and presentations, but he doesn't really ask for them. So he only wants them when he sees them in like somebody else's house or in the library. But at home, I think a few books. I mean, right now, right, we have like 3 books that he took here from the library, because 3 books is the limit here. And that's the other thing I realized. In the US, the limit of the books that you can take from the library, I don't know, it's like 10 or 15 or 20 that you can take at some point.
I think there's
3.
no limit in my town.
Oh, okay. See, no limit.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
and then I realized, okay, if there is no limit, right? Everybody has so many. Why do we need so many like books or so much the same as toys? Yeah, he doesn't really ask for children's books again. I think it's more when he sees them, then he would want them, or but he doesn't really, he forgets quickly. Yeah.
But generally, like, what about just like an adult book that we would call it? Like, does he ask for those? Or he just takes interest when he comes across it?
He doesn't generally ask. No, I think it's when he comes across. Like the same thing if we walk on the street and he sees, in the store, he sees this, I don't know, toy, or he sees this like train toy or something, he asks, oh, can we buy it? But kind of day to day, he doesn't really ask for, for more things.
What would
Or
you
for more
say that
books.
like your own personal interest level is in reading? Like, do you personally read for your own like pleasure, or just mostly for like must do things? And by reading, I don't mean just like, chapter books. I mean just even like any kind of reading like that you might do on health or well-being, or spirituality, or just general information that you consume via reading. Like, how would you say, do you do that? Do you practice in that? I'm just curious as far as like, how that might be reflected in his interest to like also want to participate in the reading and writing, versus how you said, like there was another son and father that were more into manual work, and so he just tended to gravitate toward that.
Yeah, so I've been minimalizing everything in my life, including consumption of information. I don't read like fiction, or I don't watch, anything. The only stuff that I do like read, it's the spirituality. Some of the things that I'm really been focusing my attention, right? What is it that I want to read or consume, right? And I think some of this might be reflected in him. I think he also has this, what Anjali said, just has this, his own, his own curiosity or his own desire to figure things out, right? To like know how things work, where things come from, how life, like how things function. But I definitely intentionally, our life is more into like I minimize or put less focus on the consumerism. I really try to not to say that he doesn't want, because there are things everywhere, there are things around, right? So it's challenging. It's really challenging.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hi.
Vati?
Yeah, I am totally new to this, and I have two 3.5-year-old twins, girls. I live in United States. So, is there any, how do we deal with tantrums? Do they occur? I mean, what would be the underlying reason, and is there anything that we can do to handle them?
I cannot really talk about, handling these things. I think parents, for me, I had to look into myself and the environment. The environment is a lot. And most of the time these days, the modern context is just, it's so unnatural for children. There are so many conflicts, right? Conflicting messages, conflicting images, everything. So I think it's really hard for them. For children, it's really hard to be living in the modern environment. So also that piece of understanding, okay, it's not, it's not their fault. It's not like, it's, and for me, a big part of it was working on the environment, like trying to source the environment that would be most optimal for my son and for me, and also working on doing a lot of my personal inner work, just doing a lot of looking into my own reactions, emotions. Where is this coming from? Why is this triggering me? My shadows, a lot of the inner work. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And the other thing is, so I am new in this journey. So how do I start? Like my kids go to play area for like 6 hours, like play care for 6 hours, and then so how do I start? Is there like anything can you help me with the transition? Are you able to help me with the transition?
I would just start observing, just observe and document. There is a US group for parents. If you send me a message, I can add you there. And what we do there is similar to what I did here. We share, just sharing your own observations and and continuing, maybe do more workshops. I think Jinan is going to have more observational workshops coming up, but those are the steps. And start maybe slowly, like removing, toys, extra stimulation, a lot of things that really we don't need in our environment.
Okay. Yeah, I think Jinan, he added me to the US group yesterday. So
Okay.
I'm there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Actually, children are being ill-treated like anything now, absolute ill-treatment of children. And people don't seem to understand many things. You see, till about 7 years, I don't think mothers should go away from children. They should not be sent for any what you call that, this babysitting, and nothing should be done actually. I feel 7 years minimum, And also the other tendency now is not to carry the child. They have this, I think those are very important for children to feel protected and, and also there are other, dangerous things like we don't understand the power of words. For example, fear is being created right from the beginning. See, the moment you say no to a child, you are creating irritation. But that is what we do all the time. And you say don't, child is good. So immediately fear is induced. So both irritation, meaning a tendency for awakening anger or, making the child angry, or fear. These are two things that are being systematically done by parents today, left, right, and center. Because the environment we have created is anti-child. And most of us, because we are educated, we don't know anything actually. That's the whole problem. Because we don't use our common sense at all. We don't sense, we don't, see, I don't know why we don't sense anger erupting in children or fear. And I don't understand why we don't see that in the long term that's going to be harmful for your child. So basically we are absolutely selfish. That's what it is actually. We are selfish outright.
Yeah.
So it'll take some time. It'll take a lot of time because the Western world is going absolutely in the opposite direction. What I mean by Western is all the educated.
Yeah.
They have lost all their absolute, instinct as a biological being. It's a tragedy that people have to attend parenting workshops, no? That shows where we've reached, you know. So it's going to be a long story, but I feel that, given this opportunity, I think we should very systematically begin to document and try to see the thing. My strength is that I have fantastic proof of what I'm talking about. When I say a child is learning, I can now show you what is the process involved in that. Understand, na?
Yeah.
And that systematic, documentation and research is required, because only through that process we can convince the other people that what you're doing is wrong.
Correct.
I mean, there is something called right and wrong. Let's, understand that. Everything is not right. There is definitely, you see, in indigenous societies, you will never hear somebody telling no. You'll never see a child asking permission for doing anything. So at a psychological level, they are absolutely healthy. So in one sense, if you truly begin to study this, you will find that this whole modernity is psychologically sick, cognitively damaged. So I know these are harsh words, but this is a fact. See, because we don't understand the vulnerability of a child. We are not in control. Please understand, we are not in control. The context conditions us, which means we are products of our conditions. So unless the condition is right, we will turn out to be what we are. You see? And indigenous societies, not that they knew how to do it. Indigenous societies, because they are life-centric or nature-centric, they did the right thing. Not because they knew it. Because that is the way nature functions, no?
Yeah.
So what actually needs to be done is to understand the nature of the child, which means we have to be least interfering. We need to actually give more and more space to the child, and respect their capacity for learning. So the book thing, that there is a confusion that these days, the kind of books that are given to children will make them absolutely idiotic and infantile. Our assumption is that unless you, make it simple, they don't understand. This is an absolutely wrong assumption. If a child is able to pick up your mother tongue without you simplifying it, which means they can deal with complexity, there's no doubt about that. No? So the complexity should never be reduced for a child. The child will on their own reduce it. That's the difference. That's the understanding people don't have. In fact, the height of modern parenting is that even crawling is taught to children now. How to crawl, how to turn, that first tilting the child does, even that is being taught. So this is the height of stupidity of modern educated people, and the more you're educated, the more you're alienated from the true essence of life, the true understanding of how living beings learn, So it's a long journey, Actually, there is a very interesting video called The Continuum Concept. There is also a book, but I usually don't recommend books, Books has a way of wiring your brain in a certain way. If you listen, if you hear, that wires you in a different way. So continuum concept is there, and we will share some of those in the group that we are in. And also there is one very interesting video by one Alaskan indigenous person who talks about what is learning. So these are few things we will share. And so essentially all this is about our unschooling. Children are perfect, no problem at all. The more we begin to unschool, we will do less interference with children's lives. That's all. But the problem lies in us, not in children. Okay, so we meet on the 4th.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jinan and Svilana.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mrs.
thank you,
Dana.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
It was